Welcome into another edition of the James Boyd Podcast. I, of course, am James Boyd, joined by my editor, Jim Aiello. And Jim, we're back after the first weekend of the playoffs, which the Colts were not featured in, unfortunately,
Wait,
which
what?
seemed like a formality, right? Playoffs. They were so close, it seemed like a few months ago, but
Yeah.
that did not happen. A lot of good football was played over the weekend. I certainly enjoyed it. But for now, we got to get back to Chris Ballard, who spoke last week after we recap Carly Gordon. Figure we'd give it a couple of days, debrief, and now we're back to talk about what Chris Ballard had to say for being brought back, for a 10th season. So your initial reaction to Mr. Ballard sitting up there and I don't know, Jim, having to give the same song and dance as he
I
has in years past, or maybe a little bit different. I don't know.
You beat me to it. I would call it, I'll try not to curse too much on this show, but I was thinking it's a little bit of a SOS. It's the same old shit. I mean, that's what it is, man. Like that's what and to I'm not that's not even really to insult Chris Ballard. Like what the hell is he supposed to say? They've been in the
Yeah.
playoffs in 5 years. Like he sat there, he flogged himself for wanted to be better, disappointed, like all the stuff you expected him to say, all the things that he has to say, and they gotta figure out a way to improve. We get into the details of that, which we should. I think that's important, obviously, for Colts fans, for the Colts to figure out ways to get better next year. But general impressions were like, it's the same old shit, man. Like he just he. It's 10 years. God, when you said that, it hits me every time that this is year 10 that they're gonna go into this, and it's just
Boy, and he's
man,
aged quite a bit, Jim. Saw a
oh
photo of
geez,
him when he first got hired to where he is now. Though it's 10 years, granted,
not been
time
kind.
moves, but boy,
Yeah.
they have beat him down.
It's a resume again. Like no one's trying to defend the resume anymore. I've seen a lot of back and forth on Twitter. I've been involved in some of it. No one's defending the resume. It's not defendable. Like you can't. Like he's had some good draft picks. He's made some good trades. Whatever. But like the record is what the record is. He's under 500. He's made the play. He hasn't won a division title. He hasn't. Again, we don't need to go. We do this every time. Like it is what it is. No one's defending it. The only thing we can really talk about is that Colts ownership decided that they wanted to bring him back because they think he can fix this. Not a decision I would say I didn't necessarily agree with, but that's where we're at. I do want to say, too, again, speaking of Twitter engagement, I want to get to this point. I don't know if you want me to or not, but
Oh,
here
feel
I am.
free. Go for it.
Like, I've seen a lot of people getting mad at Colts media for not holding him accountable, for not asking hard questions. I come on. Like, what? Okay. Point one, there is one entity, three people who can hold Chris Ballard accountable, truly, and it's the owners of the Colts. If they wanted to
Yeah.
hold him accountable, that's them. That's all they can decide. They don't need the media to point out all the flaws or all the things that have gone wrong with the Colts. They know. They are aware. They see it every day. They chose to stick with it. That's on them. Accountability is for the Colts owners to decide. Now, again, you have to ask the questions that what Colts fans want to answer. But like you asked last year, you specifically, not just Colts media, but you, James Boyd, asked last year, Chris, why do you deserve to have this job? Do you feel like you've earned this job? We know the answers are no. Like he couldn't say yes. Like
Right.
when I think you asked him in this recent press conference, what are you most proud of? And immediately he goes back to 5 years. It's like God. Like, and now he progressed through the answer, but like he was like, yeah, that 2020 team, we made the playoffs, but like it's there are no questions. There are no questions. Unless you just wanted somebody to be a performative asshole to stand up and be like, you don't deserve to have this job. Tell us why you like that's not gonna happen. So like whatever you expect as a Colts fan for the media to ask, not James, anybody in that room, like it's not gonna happen. The only people who can hold him truly accountable are the Colts owners, and they've decided not to. They decided that they don't believe he needs to be at this point, that he can fix the mess that they have made. So or that he has made. So that's it. That's where we're at.
Yeah, it's funny
End of
hearing
rant.
the responses. And I try to remind myself that it's probably still the loud minority on social media
Sure.
who feel
Sure.
like, hey, you should just get up there and give them a piece of your mind. But that's not productive. And what I've tried to grow in is realizing that a lot of the performative questions, well, I feel good in the moment, and I'll get the Twitter mob behind me to tell me I'm such a great hard-nosed reporter, but like it doesn't answer anything. So this year, I was thinking to myself, yes, there will be hard questions, tough questions, but also let's try to get some legitimate answers. So when you say he said he was confident in what they're doing because they've done it before. So then I followed up and said, what are you confident in? Are you referencing something from recently or 5 years ago? And he mentioned, oh, well, we kind of built it this year. Then it kind of went away. 2021, we were a good team. So, like, was the answer satisfactory? No, because they haven't played satisfactory. They haven't performed satisfactory. So, I think a lot of times fans, and this is even for myself until I got older and realized how it all kind of works, it is a hopeless feeling. Know that nothing can change unless your owner wants to change their mind. That is the bottom line.
Yeah.
Chris Ballard probably knows I should not be employed here, but he's not going to fire himself.
Yeah, what's he
He's
supposed
not
to
going
say?
right.
Yeah.
So from that point, I will quote unquote defend him
Yeah.
because it's a no man situation. Now,
Correct.
moving on to the actual resume, here's why I think a lot of the things that popped up and why the frustration of the fans is still valid. Jim, aside from the personal stuff with journalists, I mean, hey, I chose a public job. It's part of the territory. I'm not going to sit up here and act like, you can't say mean things to me about my job. Whatever. Who cares? But I will say there haven't been many conversations that you and I have had, you as my editor and one of my bosses, quote unquote, at The Athletic, where you're asking me if I have my juju, shimmer, or confidence and if I can still do this. You know what I mean? So when I heard that, when he told that story, Jim, one, I couldn't believe he told it of his own volition. I was thinking to
Yeah.
myself,
That's how he started.
yeah, I was like, boy, you should have been, I don't know, getting your arm twist back, and being interrogated or something like that to share this information publicly. But that to me said it all, Jim. If your owner has to ask you, are you still confident you can get this done before I give you another opportunity? You probably shouldn't be the GM of that team. That's kind of where I stand. I understand why he was brought back. Now, they did way ultimately the one season this year and really one half of a year more than the previous 8 leading up to it. But, Jim, that is pretty damning. Like, man, trying to have pep talks with your general manager and trying to gauge his enthusiasm for doing the job after a decade, can you still do this? Oh, that was not going to go over well with the fan base, and it should not. So what was your reaction to that part of it? Because that was something going into it I did not expect to be revealed, quite honestly.
No, I didn't either. The ownership stuff has been tough of late. And again, this is coming from somebody that, from everything I've read and heard, I have a deep respect, or at least, I've garnered, I should say, a respect for Carly Ursay-Gordon and the way she's gone about this. But of recent, those things, like the fact that the Colts put out a statement after she came out and spoke, which again, I testament to her. I thought it was a good idea to come out and speak. I thought she tried to defend her decision. She tried to get out there in front of it and saying, she didn't have to. Most owners don't do that. So, but again, like, clearly the message didn't get out quite the way they wanted to because they put out a statement the next day. I thought that was kind of a bad look. And then you say, yeah, then you get to this point where she has to ask the GM if he's still got it. And it's like, well, that's kind of your call. It's kind of
Good point.
And
Yeah.
I think maybe she was asking if he still wants it, if he's not beaten down by the job, if he still thinks he can turn things around, if he still believes in himself. And clearly, I mean, the answer is yes to all those from Chris Ballard's perspective. But like, I do, again, like, I don't know how this is the thing that you and I were talking about weeks before this decision was made, trying to prepare Colts fans for this outcome, which is that the personal relationship matters between Chris
Yeah,
Ballard and Carly
it does.
Ursay-Gordon and the other sisters. Like, they have a bond. They like each other. Carly likes Chris Ballard. Full stop. Like, that is true. So she doesn't want to fire him. She has to find reason to want to fire him. And I think she still believes in him. And again, like, if he believes in himself, then she believes in him, and that's what we're going forward with. So it's, again, I'm not saying that's, again, not defending the approach or the decision, but that is what James and I have been talking about for the last few weeks, being like, this personal relationship, the fact that they have kind of grown really close over the last 5 to 10 years matters. It matters when when this decision is going to come down. So yeah, it was a revealing moment. Not surprising. Chris Ballard's great at these, by the way. Like, I mean, again, he was in a no-win situation in terms of being able to say anything to defend the decision, but like, he's good at it. He's good at doing what he can do to pacify fans, I suppose. Like, he did reveal this story of his own volition. And it kind of, again, even if you don't think it was the greatest decision to share it, like, sharing a personal story is like a good way to try to, generate sympathy or whatever you want to call it. But like, yeah, at the end of the day, when you think about it, you're like, man, like if your owner is asking you that question, it's
He's
not really great.
cooked.
Not
He's
a great sign.
hibachi. He's grilled. He's skewered. I was like, this is not it. I don't want to hear this. Can you still do the job? You haven't even done the job well enough for me to be asking you that. So she did, though, and he is back for a 10th season.
Yep.
But looking at more tangible answers besides
Sure.
him defending his resume, because we can talk ad nauseum about that. And honestly, you could probably just go back to our podcast from a year ago at this time, Jim, and play that back if you want to hear all the things that Ballard has or has not accomplished. But the crux of all of this basically comes down to them believing that this team was good enough through the first half of the season.
Yep.
And then the crux within that crux, I don't know if there's a crux, like, is it square root of crux or whatever it is?
I'm just doing like bullet point below and then like the
Carry
numbers after
one
that.
that.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
At the gist of it, at the middle of it, at the heart of it is Daniel Jones.
Yep.
And what I found fascinating, Jim, was Chris Ballard not saying that they want to bring Daniel Jones back. That was obvious. I do think that is a formality at this point because both sides
Yep.
have interest in each other. And he was playing the best football of his career before the fractured fibula and the torn Achilles. However, when he said that Daniel is not only the short-term answer, but their long-term answer, this is one of those moments where I actually did have someone reach out and say, hey, man, you didn't follow up there. And I'm like, in the moment, I honestly didn't remember hearing that in the moment. I had my head down, probably was typing something. So I missed it. I'm kicking myself. But trust me, this question will get followed up with throughout the rest of the offseason, whether it's the combine, owners' meetings, whatever. But point is, how can you say Daniel Jones is your long-term answer when he's only played one full season his entire career?
I know how.
Go ahead.
You traded your next 2 first-round picks.
I know. And trust me, you're right. You're right. When they did that, that was the ultimate signal that, hey, we believe in Daniel Jones. But even then, that was before the torn Achilles. So now he's
Yep.
coming off a torn Achilles. You're saying he's your long-term answer, and he's only played 16 games once in his career. Granted, he should have played 17, but that year they rested him for the season finale because they had made the playoffs with the Giants, yada, yada, yada. But he's never played a full season, whether it's due to injury, which was often the case, or being benched like he was last year with the Giants. So, Jim, that was some high praise for Daniel. And I just think that it is naive to think that with 7 years of his career now on paper, now in the history books,
Mhm.
to believe that he's going to stay healthy for a full year. Like, you need a
Yes.
contingency plan, but I also don't know if you can afford a contingency plan.
That's why I said I'm going to take out my paintbrush now because I'm going to show you that paint. This is what Chris Ballard did, which was painting himself into a very, very tough corner. You can't. He did. He traded the 2 first-round picks. That was a statement of belief in Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones then tore his Achilles. Chris Ballard now has no other options but to believe in Daniel Jones. You guys asked him about the why you feel good about the injury recovery from an Achilles. He pretty much said he's younger than the last 2 guys who had Achilles injuries, which was significant ones at quarterback. Kirk Cousins, he didn't say them by name, but Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers are the 2 guys that he was definitely referencing. They're older for sure. Both of them have played decent football since not the year after, but 2 years after, I would say is pretty much the clarification there. Aaron Rodgers did not look like a very good quarterback in his final year with the Jets after tearing his Achilles. Kirk Cousins did not look like a very good quarterback with the Falcons his first year after tearing the Achilles. He looked okay this year. So I guess there's some hope that Daniel Jones being, 12 years younger than Aaron Rodgers and probably about 10 years younger than Kirk Cousins, he'll recover better, faster than them. Again, it doesn't matter almost. Like it doesn't matter what we think because this is what has to happen for the Colts. They are banking on that. They are banking on it to happen, and that is it. That is the end of the conversation. The only point you can bring up in terms of bringing in competition is like, are they going to keep? They're going to keep Riley Leonard. Chris Ballard liked what he saw at the end. Hard not to. Looked pretty good in that last game and a half that he played. Really, or that not the it was like the final week and then the other part of the game that he played when Daniel Jones went down. And Anthony Richardson. And I don't see a future for Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis, but the way Chris Ballard talks about him, he did say that you guys have heard me. I am his biggest believer and fan. Part of me thinks maybe he brings him back, and that's their contingency plan. Some sort of competition between him and Riley to be the quarterback 2 or something like that, which, boy, have the mighty fallen if you're competing with Riley Leonard to be the QB2, but that is probably I don't know. Like you said, we'll get into all the other ways this team has to improve, but they can't afford to spend a lot of money on another veteran quarterback to compete with Daniel Jones or to be the backup to Daniel Jones because they need to spend their time and energy and money and draft limited draft capital on improving the rest of the roster around this
Yeah.
team. Um, so yeah, no, they're 100% putting all their eggs in the Daniel Jones basket. A guy, as you said, who has almost never finished an entire season healthy, who has almost never proven to be a franchise quarterback. Like he had a really good half this year. He had a pretty good half with the Giants that one year in 2022 when they won the playoff game. Things fell apart after that. It's a super, super risky move that the Colts have no other choice but to engage with. I'm not even sure if they fire Chris Ballard, what the other option would be for the next GM. They could bring in another stopgap veteran, but they can't draft a first round quarterback. So what's the option there? Like this is just it. This is just what they have. They just have to hope that Daniel Jones is good by next season and can replicate some version. Even though I believe in Chris Ballard's answer, he even hinted at the fact that he might not be really like his best version of
100%.
himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, during the first half of that season or next season. So they're going to have to work around him. It's going to be a lot on Jonathan Taylor, which is another conversation we're going to have because that guy is coming off now back-to-back 300 carry seasons. That is tough on just about every running back not named Derrick Henry. You saw Saquon Barkley this year coming off of his 500 touch season was just not the same guy. He just wasn't the same guy for the Eagles this year. It's going to be tough. It's going to be really, really, really tough. And they're going to have to figure out the best way to spend the rest of their resources to try to bolster the team around what will be a limited quarterback going into next year.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more when it comes to that sentiment. And going back to Anthony real quick, I thought Chris Ballard opened the door more than ever before when it comes to moving on from Anthony. He really didn't answer the question.
No, yeah, you're right.
His response was a lot of it has to do with his health. And I'm actually going to read the full quote here. He said it was a fair question about the trade or potential trade, which was insinuated in the question. And he goes, he's got to still work through the limited vision he has, and we'll see what the future holds there. A lot of it's going to deal with his health too. And then what really made my ears perk up, Jim, was him saying this about Riley Leonard. I
Right.
do think there's something there. That is something we will evaluate. We got to make the decision like, okay, if Anthony doesn't get to where we think he can Riley be the number two? That is one, a heck of an endorsement for Riley.
Yep.
And two, as open ended as he's ever been about Anthony. And if I had to put money on it as a non betting man myself, those who do bet responsibly, please. I do think that Anthony will be on a different roster next year. Mainly
Yeah.
because even if the Colts have certain plans for him, he might want different plans for himself. He might
Yeah.
say, look, man, I don't want to be brought back here where me and the coach clearly don't align from a philosophical standpoint, from a game processing standpoint, whatever the case may be. I don't think it's any secret that him and Shane Steichen are not on the same page. And it's very obvious that when Shane talks about him, it's kind of in a noticeably dismissive way. Even
Yep.
when he was asked a simple question of, is there a role for Anthony on the team next year? And he was like, well, we got to see if he can see. That's basically what he said. So from all of that, I think that Anthony will welcome a change of scenery to go elsewhere. Even if he has to be compete to be a backup or be a spot starter, whatever, I think he would like to move on. So we'll see what that means. And quite honestly, it didn't sound like, and I'm just kind of putting two and two together, that Chris Ballard was all that gung ho about bringing in, like you said, Jim, another starting caliber quarterback. That is just not going to happen. They really can't afford that to happen because they have so many things they have to address, whether it's trying to bring back Alec Pierce in free agency. He's going to be very expensive, especially, if you franchise tag him, don't franchise tag him, that's going to cost you some money there. You
Yeah.
probably have to revamp when it comes to your defensive ends. You have Kwity Paye, Samson Ebukam, and Tyquan Lewis, who are all free agents. I don't think any of those three should be brought back or retained. So what else do you do to bolster your pass rush? Because that was probably the one thing when looking back at the Chris Ballard press conference where you didn't have a good out. You didn't have a good excuse. Quarterback didn't work out. The Sauce trade didn't pan out. Sauce got hurt. Javarius Ward, who could have predicted that he would get concussed and think about retirement after
Yep.
what happened with Drew Ogletree. All those things are kind of like not in your control, but the fact that your pass rush was that poor was in your control, especially considering how much you've invested in that unit. So how do you bolster that? How do you get better with that? You probably got to put some money towards that. And so all those things to me are factors when it comes to trying to elevate this team. And it's just not worth it, in my opinion. If you believe in this team as much as you say you do, to go out there and spend money on a quarterback, because I mean, I just can't imagine them going out and re-signing Daniel Jones and then giving $10 million to someone else to come in and back him up. Like, that just doesn't seem realistic to me. So it seems like you, to your point, Jim, and I'm being long-winded here, but it goes back to your point about they're banking everything on Daniel Jones in 2026. So here's my question, though, because he mentioned the defense has to get younger and faster.
Yep.
What changes would you make on that side of the ball? And I'm not asking you like to keep or cut guys, but when you look at certain groups, what areas are you saying, okay, this is where we're too old, this is where we got to get faster, we got to get younger?
Revitalize your bathroom with big savings at Lowe's. Get up to 40% off select vanities and free delivery during our bath savings event. Plus, get up to 40% off select shower heads. No matter what style you're looking for, we've got you covered. Shop for your bathroom refresh at Lowe's. We help, you save. While supplies last, selection varies by location.
Whatever.
Linebacker. First spot. Like,
That's
undoubtedly.
Yeah.
In terms of younger, faster, I didn't think Zaire had a great year. Pratt was fine. He was fine.
Minimum due picked up midseason.
Yeah, I mean, he was fine for what he was, which was a midseason pickup who knew lose defense, so fine. So that's where you got to get. To me, that's where you got to get younger. You got to get faster. And I think Ballard, for some reason, went through his track record of being able to find linebackers in the draft. Like, yeah, you've done it, but like you kind of need to do it again here. It's been, you need to refresh. So I know he was high on Carlisle's at some point. I know they were trying to get him healthy. He talked a lot about him needing to get healthy again. That is true. They need that to be improved in that area. But again, like, that's where when he said younger, faster, that's where my mind went. Because I guess you don't think fast when you think like interior defensive tackle, but they need to get younger at interior defensive tackle. Like, DeForest Buckner's going to come back, but much like Charvarius Ward, not much like Charvarius Ward. Those are different situations, but they both have very serious issues going on that might compromise their ability to play into the future. Now, who knows? DeForest Buckner could be great by the time next year starts. But he's also older, dealing with a serious neck injury. Grover Stewart has been
expensive, by the way.
Right.
Very expensive.
Oh, they're not cutting him. They can't. Like, Ballard would never. That would be like admitting defeat for Chris Ballard, I think.
Would you talk to him about restructuring? I mean, yeah, dude, I'm serious.
I don't.
Jim,
I got to look at the money, but yeah.
I think he's owed like $26 million as far as his cap hit is next year.
Yeah.
And they could save maybe about $20 million, I think, if they cut him, which I don't think they would cut him, because Chris did say that he expects DeForest to play next season. He did not say he expects him to play for the Colts. Now, I might be reading too much into him not coming fully out there and saying those things. But, man, they better seriously consider it.
Yeah, I mean, they could try to restructure, tack on some more void years. They've done it already with him. I don't know. Ballard moving on from a guy like DeForest Buckner seems highly unlike him. But maybe making big splashes in free agency and big trades is highly unlike him, and he did those things. So perhaps he does. But to get back to the point, defensive tackle, obviously you need to get younger there. Grover Stewart's been a great player for the Colts for a long time, underrated player for the Colts for a long time, but he's getting up there too. And then, as you mentioned, at defensive end, like Latu, I think Latu had a better season than some people think.
Yeah, he was fine. He should. I mean, granted, people want him to be a stud and a star because he was the first defensive player drafted, which I understand. But yeah, I would agree with you there.
I think he's like, I wasn't about to say like he's been awesome and they should rely on him as their pass rusher one. Like, I think he's still got number one pass rusher upside. He made a lot of splash plays this year, both in the run game and intercept. He had 3 interceptions, right? 3 interceptions.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah. Didn't have the sack numbers I know people wanted. That, I mean, totally understandable. I'm just saying into the future, you got one guy you can bank on. After that, I really don't know. I really don't know what they have. So that's another one where you got to get younger, faster on defensive end, linebacker. Again, I think at DB, you're probably just hoping health. Like you're hoping for the return of Sauce Gardner. You're hoping for
Yeah.
Travarius Ward to be healthy. You're hoping for Wally to get healthy. You're hoping for, you want to get, you still have Cam Bynum. Like secondary wise, health is pretty much what they need. And
Yeah.
that should be fine.
Yeah.
Ish. Kenny Moore, though, I will say, you could probably get a little younger at slot. But like for the most part, the secondary, I think you could leave alone. Mostly only because you've poured so much resource into it, right? You've paid
Yeah.
a safety, you've paid a corner, you traded for a corner. Like they've put a lot of resources into the secondary. You got to hope that it comes back healthy. Again, they're gonna have limited resources. We haven't gotten to the Alec Pierce part of this thing, but like they got to figure that out. They have to figure that out with Alec
Ooh,
Pierce.
baby, he's getting $20 million at least. At
So,
least annually.
At least, I agree.
If not
I'm
more.
coming around on the franchise tag thing. At least, I guess I'm not saying I'm fully supporting it, but like, man,
I'm
just
just thinking
it is
like
definitely...
if you let him hit the open market, that
Yeah.
would to me would be a grave mistake because again, and then I'll say this, Jim, and Chris Ballard really couldn't give an answer on this, but I did follow up with him because he said when they made the Sauce trade and they won in Berlin, he was like, I thought we were a top 4 team in the league. They had a shot to win the Super Bowl, essentially. So my question to him and really to you is, then how close should they be next year? Because when I asked him that question, he was like, well, every year is different. And, I don't want to get caught up in that. And I get it. You don't want to put yourself in a box and say, well, it's AFC Championship or bust. But, I mean, how close can you be with failure before someone moves on from you? I'm like, dude, you can't be running this back next year saying, oh, we're gonna try to retool or rebuild or see if we can be a tough out. Nah, man, you need to be in title contention next year.
Yep.
And I know that sounds crazy to some people listening to this podcast because it sounds crazy to me to say it out loud, but that is a standard you've set for yourself. There is no more next year. You're in the last year of your contract. People don't want to hear about oh man, you know what, we gave it all we got and we went out 9-8, next year. Boom. Yes, we did it. We had a winning season. And even if they get into the playoffs, but they get the doors blown off of them, what does any of that mean? Like you saying that you were a top 4 team to that first half of the season and Carly Ursay-Gordon betting on that, basically saying that's who we are. That's who you need to be come September. And obviously when you get into the later months of the season, come November, December, January, you need to be winning games in those months, playing for something meaningful in those months, not just trying to get in or trying to figure out the math of how you get in. Because too many times that's happened in recent years. And I think fans are fed up and they're rightfully so fed up with that. So from that perspective, I was just like, man, I get that. Again, it might be a performative question to ask you how close you are, but if you ain't close now, then when? I mean, when? And how are you going to do that? So that is the difficulty that they've kind of find themselves in. Like you've pinned everything on Daniel Jones, who again is injury prone. You pin everything on Sauce Gardner, and now your defense is aging and older. You got to revamp that. But whatever you do, there are no consolation prizes. There are no. I started to go there, but this isn't going to be a feel-good story if you backdoor your way into the playoffs and you end the 5-year drought. Like you need to be playing for hardware, big hardware. And I don't know if they can do it, Jim, but I don't know. How do you feel about just that standard? Because, dude, what else are you actually trying to do at this point? You're in year 10. You got to be playing for something at this point. I mean, my gosh.
There's the standard that they should be playing for, and then there's the standard that I think ownership has. And I think those are different things, as we found out this year, to be honest with you. I think we found out this year that they are different standards. I mostly agree with what you said about what they should be playing for, given the fact that they thought he was a top 4 team with this roster going into next year. That said, I would be shocked if they made the playoffs and fired Chris Ballard, no matter what happens in the playoffs. I would be. I just would be. I think I think Carly Ursay-Gordon, again, likes Chris Ballard. And if they make the playoffs, that will be enough improvement from this team for her to want to trust him going forward. I'm not saying it should be that way, but that is the way I feel this is going. Again, my standard is probably a little less than yours, is that you better be in week 17, 18. If you haven't locked up the division already, you better be competing for the division right in those last 2 weeks.
Fair.
And even if you don't win it, you better be a very firm and good wild card team, like a 12-win, like the Bills were, like a 12-win wild card team where like, hey, we didn't win the division because the division winner won 13 games. We got 12. We got in with the wild card. and we're gonna maybe not. Yeah, you'll be a threat to the 3 seed or whoever that was. Like
Yeah.
that to me is gonna be like if you're a 12-win team, you're competing for the division the whole time, and you're a threat in the playoffs. You're seen as a threat in the playoffs. I would be fine. That would be an acceptable standard to me. Now, but what I am saying is that I think ownership will be like, well, they snuck into the playoffs at 9-8 with a wild card team, but they did make the playoffs, so that is going to be enough. But again, like to get to your earlier point on this whole thing, like, yeah, man, they're running it back. I don't think he has a choice. They don't have the assets or the capability, really. I don't think to do a full reset. Like Chris Ballard, that's
Right.
not where Chris Ballard wants to take this thing. That's not
No.
where Carly Gordon wants to take this thing. She
No.
wants to compete. They believe they are in position to compete for the AFC next year. So they are going to run this back, and the moves that you're going to see them make this year are going to be, one, more aggressive because apparently that's the way Carly Gordon wants them to
Yeah.
operate. But two is going to be try to win now. That is what it's going to be. Whether or not that's good for the long-term health of this franchise or not, that is what they're going to do. And so the moves that you will see them make in the next few months are going to be about winning in 2026 because that is what Chris Ballard has to do in order to keep his job.
That's why I'm like, hey, franchise tag Alec Pierce. Who cares if you're paying
Yeah,
$28 million
you're right.
guaranteed? Next year is the
You're
only
right.
year that matters anyway. So I'm very curious about how all of this will play out because there are a lot of moving factors and parts. And again, it ultimately comes down to Daniel Jones. I don't doubt his toughness, his football acumen, his character, none of that stuff. But boy, that is a lot to put on a guy who hasn't finished the season healthy and has only been to one playoffs. So good luck, I guess, if you're Chris Ballard and company. You are certainly setting yourself up for a tall task in 2026. But at the same time, that's the reality when you believe that you are the 8-2 team versus the 8-9 team. And to not backslide anymore, Jim, I think that's also key. And that gets into like the psychological side of things because asking Carly about this, Chris about this, Shane about this, none of them could ever really definitively say why their teams, beyond just this season, but in years past, basically since they last made the playoffs in 2020, falter every year late, no matter if it's injuries, if it's matchups, if it's just the moment's too big, whatever. These teams do not win big games. I mean, for Shane Steichen to be 7-22 against teams with winning records through his first 3 years, that's egregious. For him to be 2-10 against the Jaguars and the Texans in his first 3 years, that's egregious. So there's a lot of people that have to figure out how this team can be tougher to finish games because in the same breath that Chris Ballard said, I thought we were a top 4 team, he also said, well, we lost our last 7 games and top 4 teams don't do that regardless of injury. So again, that goes back to why I asked him, how close are you? Which one are you? Are you a good team or are you a bad team? And it's such a, I think you could talk yourself into either or, but personally, I'm going to stick with what lasted and maybe the feeling that most of the players said they had when they left the building. Do we feel good? Do we feel bad? We felt bad because we didn't have a win in 2 months. So, man, that's a lot. Oh boy, Jim, next year is going to be a big one.
And the schedule, man, like it's not going to do any favors. I'll tell you that. You got the AFC North next year. Like, that's tough. That's tough no matter what. Like, I know the Ravens had a down year. The Bengals had a down year. I do not expect that to be the case next year. And you still got the Steelers. I'm not going to mention the Browns. Maybe that is an easy win. But, again, that defense is always pretty good. We don't have to go through the whole thing, but, like, they finished third. Guess who else finished third? The Chiefs. So they get the Chiefs now in that game, in their third-place game. I just, like, I'm looking at this schedule, man. Chiefs, Eagles. Like, I expect the Vikings to be better. You got 2 against they don't have 2 teams, the Jags and the Texans, like Cowboys, Ravens, Bengals. Like I think the Giants will be better next year, which is a stupid thing to expect, but I think they will be. It's not gonna be easy. Like that's the other thing. The schedule's not gonna do them any favors in terms of winning. If they're gonna be a top 4 team in the AFC, if they're going to do compete for the division, they're gonna have to earn it. Like they are really gonna have to earn it. They're not gonna get the gift schedule that like the Patriots got this year on their way to 13 games where they played nobody. That's not what's happening next year for the Colts. So I am very skeptical of the future of this team, but I hate being the offseason is the time for optimism. So I'm gonna go ahead and say that there's a world in which that 8-2 team comes back, and you see that for the majority of next season. It is a world. It's a possibility. They can figure that out. But at this very moment, it's hard to believe that's the reality they're going to live in 2026.
Well, I think at this point you should just go all in again. Package a couple second round picks, go get AJ Brown from the Eagles.
Sure,
And,
why not?
you see what Miles Garrett is doing over there with Cleveland. Just tell him you'll give him stake in the company if you can, weasel him away from Cleveland. I don't know what they do, but whatever it is, it's gonna be a tough needle to thread for this franchise. And really, you can't look at anyone and say this is because of someone else. You did this to yourself. When Chris Ballard and Carly Ursay-Gordon greenlighted the Sauce Gardner deal, they essentially said, this is who we are. We're going to build with this. And again, both of them said if we had to do it again, we would. Now, that's publicly. I don't know if that feeling is going to be different privately, knowing what the future held with Daniel and the Achilles and Sauce, with even dealing with the calf injury and stuff like that. He'll be fine, by the way. But yeah, it's just a lot of moving parts that, in my opinion, can't move too much, because essentially you would lose whatever base you've built for your future, and this future that you believe will be so much better than what we saw at the end of the year. So again, did Chris Ballard get up there and solve world peace and world hunger? No. Did he really give a good reason as to why he should be back? No, but he is back. And that's the reality of it. And so over the next couple of weeks or so, myself and Jim will be working on a bunch of stuff, just getting out some of the ideas that we've had here on the podcast and elsewhere into actual stories and stuff like that to kind of break down, okay, what's next? Because I do hear the part of the fan base, whether they were for or against Chris Ballard being brought back, Jim, I do agree with them saying like, all right, enough is enough to a degree. Like, I don't want to sit here and wallow too much, but I do think it was important to kind of recap Chris Ballard and all the things that he said in his press conference and also what it means for the future. But ultimately, man, same song and dance. And he said it himself. No one's going to believe in me until we win. So I better see some jujuing, some shimmering, something next year, some sizzling. I better see something. The Colts better be cooking with gas come this time next year. Otherwise, I'll be cooking with gas saying you should have never ran this back.
I want to say this too. Warning both of us right now. I don't care how good they start, September and October. I really don't. We are not going to say anything about their future or too nice about them until December comes, or at least late November.
That is true. Yes.
Until they clinch a playoff spot.
Deal.
For sure.
98% chance, man.
I can't. I'm not. I spit out the crow I ate on Daniel Jones. I spit it all out. So,
I know. You know what's crazy? I was looking back at some of the things that we talked about on old podcasts and old stories we had done, Jim. And I believe I picked them to maybe go 8-9 or something like that, or 9-8. And I was like, boy, I thought I was just an idiot when they were 8-2.
I know.
And then it ended up being right for all of the reasons none of us could have predicted. This is not a victory lap by any means. It just goes to show how weird and cruel and unpredictable sports can be. However, there's death taxes in the Colts losing in December and January and barely missing the playoffs. That is basically what happens all the time. So,
yeah.
For those who listen, thank you all for supporting me through, again, my 4th season on the beat. I've been with Jim for a while now as my editor, so it kind of flew by in a sense. And as I'm watching these playoff games, I do hear some of you saying, oh man, James, I wish you were there covering this game, or I wish my team was in it. Perhaps that'll happen next year, but at the same time, I had a lot of fun covering the team. Always crazy, never dull. And we'll keep the content coming for sure. There's a lot of things to talk about moving forward, like we talked about here on the podcast with free agency and the NFL Combine and, Daniel Jones and his rehab, AR's future, all these things. Still dominoes to fall, but nevertheless, it was fun, Jim, at times, but also stressful. I'll say that.
It was like I said, they were fun to cover for the first 2 months of the year. It was fun to believe that this team was a threat, right? That we'd be covering this team in January and talking about, can Shane Steichen game plan against the Texans and at the time maybe the Chiefs, I was thinking, but the Patriots and some of these, it would have been way more fun to cover a playoff game. I still haven't gotten to cover a real. I mean, I was there for the Rivers thing, but I was COVID, so I was covering from home. So it's I don't know. It's been a long time. I do wish for Colts fans that they got to cheer for a winner, and maybe that'll be next year.
Well,
hope springs eternal, baby.
Maybe next year. So until next time, my friends, we'll check in with you all very soon. Thanks for listening.
Some things in life are just made for each other. Peanut butter and jelly, macaroni and cheese, Modelo and college football. College football season is Modelo season, and the season has officially kicked off. The Modelo Recruiter is back in action, looking to reward full-time fans who give their all for their team and their school week in and week out. If you're listening to this, you've been recruited. So lace them up and get out there. And don't forget to make time for a well-deserved ice-cold reward, because college football wouldn't be the same without you. So grab yourself a Modelo and enjoy, the official beer sponsor of the College Football Playoff, Modelo.